Christina, at this point, you can tell that she wants to help Tick.
Yeah.
Because Dick Tick.
Dick Tick.
Let me say that. I'm going to do that one more time.
What's up, Blerd Squad? We're back with another episode of Blerd Up, where we talk about all things movies, music, TV, and gaming, all with a Blerd twist. We're your hosts. I'm Killer Cam.
And I'm Monique.
And we are back with another episode review of Lovecraft Country.
Yes, I am so excited to get talking about this episode. I feel like these first two episodes was like the last two episodes of every other show. Like, this was a season finale.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I was like, okay, the first episode was so jam-packed, and it went really, really fast. This one didn't go as fast, but there was this rush of information again, where it's just like, connect the dots. Gotta connect the dots, you know?
Yeah. Really, really enjoyed this episode, and they might as well call this episode "Daddy Issues" because
that and a few other things.
But we'll dig deep into that in a second here. But anything you want to say before we start?
Yeah, so we've received a really good response from our after talk or breakdown, whatever you want to call it. This show has definitely piqued our attention, as well as others among the vlogging, podcast community. So we're committed to seeing this one through to the end. So if you enjoyed the last breakdown, and if you like what you're seeing from us, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Please make sure you hit that like button. That's how we know what you guys are into. And as a growing channel, it only helps us get better.
Right.
Also, again, there's so much information in this show. There's absolutely no way for one person to catch it all. So if you notice something that we miss out on, drop down in those comments and let us know. We are interested. We will read the comments. We will respond back to you. That's what they're there for. So definitely looking forward to hearing what some of you all have to share with us.
Yeah, like a lot of stuff in these two episodes. This second episode alone, I had to watch it. Like the first episode, I had to watch it twice to go back and make sure I caught everything.
I've got 7 pages of notes.
Yeah, I pretty much have the same amount.
All right. I do want to do a quick special shout out to Paige Against the Machine. She turned us on to this book, as well as a couple of other ones that kind of follow the same model. And she's been really supporting us as we pump out these after talks. So Paige, thank you so much. We appreciate you. You know, the Blerd's got your back.
Yep.
All right, let's jump into this episode. Do you want the honors?
Yeah. So, George and Letty.
Wait, let's do the title of the episode. It's called
Whitey'S on the Moon. Yes, yeah. So this episode actually begins with George and Letty. No problems in the world. You hear the moving on up song. They running around their rooms. George has got every single book that he loves in his room, and Letty has a huge amount of clothes that she's sitting trying on. Both of them, no cares in the world, just jamming around. Like, this is great,
just really like enjoying the luxury of it all. And I'm looking at them like, what is y'all doing?
What, y'all just forgot about what happened last night? Like, why are y'all so happy about this stuff? But then we go back to Tick in his room, and he's just like, man, there's some messed up stuff going on here. Like, I don't know what's going on.
It's bothering him. Like, it's like physically weighing on him what happened.
Yeah. So they hear this bell, and they're not exactly sure where it's coming from. So they all end up coming out of their rooms. And Tick is like, what are y'all so happy about? Like, where do you get them clothes from, Letitia? And why, And George is like, oh, my room's got every, book pretty much in the world in it. And Tick is like, Letty, those clothes just happen to fit you, and they just happen to have every single book that you like in that room. Like, what's wrong with y'all?
And it was like this thing in my head where I'm like, okay, you guys, all right, fine, whatever. This isn't right. This doesn't feel right.
Y'all can't figure out here.
Y'all feel that comfortable, and I'm sorry, guys. Y'all feel that comfortable in these white people house.
Yeah.
Trying on their clothes and stuff, and whatever the case may be. y'all are, this feels right.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Especially for that time period, that I'm just like, what?
Yeah, yeah. And Tick basically is like, it sounds like you guys have these things in your room to keep you there.
Yeah.
Like, y'all ain't understanding what's going on at this point. And, right at that point, they actually meet William, who is basically is telling them that the bell that they heard is like the lunch bell, I think it is. And that he's already basically given Tick information about where his father is. He says that Montrose went to Boston with their lawyer. And I think he said it was Christina, the lawyer.
Yeah. Which is a lie.
Yeah. So basically, there's no way to actually reach their father at this point. They're walking around the lodge, and William's giving them the backstory of what the lodge is all about. There's no phone lines there. Titus Braithwaite, I'm sorry, originally owned the lodge, and he earned his fortune in shipping, where Leti is like, you know what I mean, slave, right? I love her. Oh my gosh. I love Journey Smollett in this role. But basically, William's giving the information about, okay, this lodge originally burnt down, and this is a replica that you guys are in, but it burnt down in 1833. Titus was killed in that fire, and he says, and almost everybody else was, and and he says, that clicked something for me, where he was like, well, almost everybody died.
So let me tell you where I kind of landed, like right at this point, because again, now that I know what this show's about, like I'm all ears. They started referring to the residence as a lodge, and that was my first clue. I was like, okay, I feel like this is going somewhere. I'm going to hold off, but I feel like I understand what's happening. Number two, when they were kind of like touring the lodge or whatever, and William was talking or whatever, and they were talking about Titus, and I was like, oh, this means something. This means something important.
He was friendly with his slaves.
Yeah, basically he was a rapist. Lack of a better term. But I was like, okay, I'm going to let this go. But the thing that I noticed, and again, this is still very early on in the episode, a theme of distraction.
Yep.
You guys are being distracted from seeing, I guess, the truth. Even the way he was talking about Titus was very misleading when we know that this mug was not this generous man. You're like, oh, he made his living in shipping. It's slavery. Oh, he was friendly with it. He's a rapist. Like, come on. And that just kind of set the tone for the episode for me, because I'm like, okay, this is going to be all about distractions. All about distractions, which I think is very important. And I'll go into it a little bit later, but considering the time we're in right now, this is very important.
I think I know where you're leading, and we'll get there when we get there. But basically, they Leti, George, and Tick all end up out outside. They're having breakfast. Letty's making herself comfortable, ringing bells for servants, and they're like, girl, what you doing? And she's like, these people don't, season their food. She's trying to get some salt. And I'm just like, y'all are for real?
Right.
Y'all just
you ain't got no home training. Number one, it's like,
and this is, I guess, we're, as an audience, we're ticked.
Right.
We're like, what are you doing?
Oh my God. And let's not forget to talk about William, how he's basically Renfield. He's basically Renfield walking around the lodge like a little cat.
Just popping up. But, Tick goes into this conversation. It's like, how can you guys be so free at this point and just enjoying all this after what happened last night? And then Leti and George actually realize that they don't remember what happened last night. And Tick's like, what do you mean you don't remember? There were monsters. There were, we crashed the car, Woody, and da-da-da. And they're like, no.
What you talking about, man?
We remember walking, to the bridge and up to the mansion. Like, that's all we remember.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide to basically cut off their conversation. I think they realize at this point that
Uncle George realized that they were being watched. And the way he got the kids together, he was like, you need to sit down. Not raise alarm.
That's how our mama used to talk to us when we was in trouble. like at the table. Like, if y'all don't sit y'all butts down right now and act like you got some sense, you know it's gonna happen later.
Oh my gosh, man! But that was cool because again, he had like that paternal hold over him. Like, okay, y'all showing out.
Get it together.
Right.
Get it together. So, they all actually Tick wanted to split up at one point, and I was like, bro,
like, what are y'all doing?
Black people don't split up. But basically, they all decide to go down to the village and take a look to find out what's going on, because they know something's going on. They're just trying to figure it out at this point. And actually, before they go to the village, they go to try to find Woody, because at this point Tix is like, we've crashed the car, you know, we've got to figure out how we're going to get out of here. They go to the garage and they find Woody not crashed at all, like pristine condition. Not pristine, the window's still broken out, but nothing's wrong with it. And at this point you see that Leti and George are really starting to doubt Tick, and like, we don't know what he's talking about, like none of this happened, the car's fine, like, and this is again goes back to your thing of distraction, illusion, smoke and mirrors, right? So after they see that Woody's fine, they go down to the village, but again it's George and Leti having this conversation, like, do you think he has PTSD? Like, and that threw me for a loop, because I was like,
what does he?
no, it threw me for a loop, because I was like, y'all are more willing to believe these white people than your friend. Like, you've known this dude for like George all his life, and Leti, since you were little, you really about to take the word over these other people than him?
That's kind of like a catch, because there's juju at play here. So it's kind of like, if you don't remember the moment he said monster, I would have been like, come on, we gotta go.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you would have told me all this crap would have happened last night, and some other stranger would have said like, oh, nothing's wrong, like everything's fine, I'd be like, what we got to do to get out of here?
Right, at the end of the day, we're leaving. Like, at the end of the day, we're leaving. Because let's first of all, let's get into this town, this village of Arden. It looks suspect. I mean, I don't want to be there, And sure enough, they walk through and they hear
that whistle,
the hunting whistle,
which called off the monsters the night before.
And they end up running into, I guess she's the sheriff. Her name was like Dell or something. Now, let me tell you this. So remember the last episode, I kept calling it a dog whistle. The way she speaks to them is dog whistling. Basically, she's saying that she doesn't like black people. But she was
like black bears. But she was like, the blacks come through here. That's what made me angry, because she started talking about, no grizzlies, but black bears come through here. The blacks. And then she went into that whole spiel. Black bees,
like the bees starting smart. They need to be on a leash, and they're basically
sticking their nose in.
Basically talking to them, and I was like, dog whistle, dog whistle, dog whistle. So here we go.
So they actually, see this silo, I guess, that the sheriff was standing next to. And George, he's, smart enough to be like, hey, like, that silo, the floor of it is brick, so there's a basement down there. And they were like, that's where they're keeping Montrose, Tick's dad.
So again, the distraction is coming in. Basically, she's showing them the silo, like there's like dead animals and stuff like in there. And y'all know damn well. With that being a stone building, I actually picked up on it, where it's like, that's the only place he could be.
So they start actually walking back to the lodge, and as they're walking back, George kind of remembers something that Tick's mom told him. And she was saying that one of her ancestors named Hannah escaped her master's house after a fire. So he's like, oh crap, it's starting to click, and as they're trying to figure all this out, here come these monsters again. And Leti, George, they're Tick, they're freaking out again, and all of a sudden out of nowhere they hear the whistle again, and instead of it being the sheriff this time, it is Christina
Braithwaite.
Braithwaite. I keep trying to say their name a different way, but basically it's Christina, and after she blows this whistle, monsters go away. And George and Leti are like, oh my gosh, that was completely terrifying. But then the next second, they're like, why am I dirty?
Yeah.
You know?
And
why are we in the woods?
That clicked for me as well, because as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, so now I'm getting why they keep losing their memory. Basically, it's the whistle. It's enchanted. It's supposed to affect, I guess, everyone who's not
a part of,
right,
you know,
right. And it's not just them exclusively. It's anybody who doesn't share that bloodline, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
So when that happened, I was like, oh, clever.
Yeah. And I think Christina actually explains it a little bit too, where she says, you know, hey, this is our way of covering our butts. Basically, when these monsters do pop out, you know, after they're gone, you know, they need a way to, you know, have people not remember it the way they, or otherwise there'd be, you know, tons of people there like, there's monsters in these woods.
Long story short, that whole town is protected. Like, you can't find it unless they want you to find it. Number one, and number two, there's like all these force fields and stuff. It's just juju.
yeah, pretty much. So, you know, they all go back to the lodge, and Tick is, you know, basically with Christina, because I think they've taken him back to Samuel's lab. And Tick witnesses actually Samuel's liver, I think.
Yeah, that's what I wrote.
Cut out. And, they have this conversation about... Well, actually, I'm sorry. Before this... I think before that conversation happens, we go actually back to George, who's back at the lodge in his room, and he's looking around, and all of a sudden he sees this book on the shelf, and it's The House on the Borderlands and Other Novels, which is another book published by Arkham House.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I know that the author
is William Hodgson.
And I know that Lovecraft was like a fan of his work. And funny, that book, if I remember correctly, well, I don't have to remember because he confirmed it in the show. Basically, a crazy man. Well, he's not crazy, but he goes to a remote house or whatever, and basically he goes on like this trip where it's like he's fighting monsters and pig-headed monsters, he said. Something like that. Yeah. Which I found funny because that's exactly what's happening to them. They're in this house.
I'm not there yet. Hold on. But after he pulls his book off the shelf, opens this, you know, compartment, this secret library. It's like a big library. And he finds this book sitting on the table that is, the name of it is Order of the Ancient Dawn. So George is like, he picks up,
look at this.
Yeah, and he starts reading it. But we go back to Samuel, Christina, and Tick in Samuel's lab. And they start having this discussion about Genesis 2:19, I think it is.
Something like that.
And, you know, they basically ultimately the conversation about, you know, Adam and Eve. And, you know, Samuel's like, you know, Adam put everything in its place, you know.
Right.
Now, in this scene, I also noticed that the way he treats Christina, and that's why I like this episode should be called Daddies or something like that, because the way he treats Christina is like just so... And as a woman, I'm just like, I'm just as good as anybody else in this lodge. Like, stop treating me like I do everything for you. You know, just as, you know, even better than other people have done for you, but you still treat me like trash.
Right.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to, I mean, because now the Adam and Eve thing is starting to become pretty noticeable. And what I found really disturbing is his explanation of Adam's place on this earth, and basically how he was the closest thing to God because he gave all the things a name and everything. And I was like, the audacity. And see, that's the type of stuff I have a problem with, when people start trying to justify misogyny and racism with the Bible and stories from the Bible and legends like that. It's like, dude.
But did you also notice that, going back to this, how he treats Christina, I was thinking basically, did he treat Christina like she's Eve? Because basically they have this, you know, anchor towards Eve because they feel like she messed up everything, you know? So I kind of think that that's the way he treats Christina, the way he does.
He treats all women like that.
Yeah, all women. Yeah, the way he does, because they have this anchor towards even her messing everything up.
Right. But I did write down, I'm sorry, I did write down, I was like, Christina gonna get you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Now,
you being that way with her is only fueling her. We don't know what exactly her full motivation is yet, but I'm like, she gonna get you. That's a Viper.
And I think Christina this is a little bit, I did look up a little bit about, the book. And I think Christina is actually a Caleb character that's in the book. I haven't read the book yet. I actually ordered the book because I want to read it, and because I want to find out what's going to happen to the rest of the season. I'll just let y'all know.
Spoiler alert, I did actually read part of it. And they did gender swap the character.
Okay. Yeah, so she is the Caleb character. But, I mean, like, basically Samuel, and what his plan is he wants to return to paradise, which was the Garden of Eden, which I guess will give them immortality, Also, are Christina and William sleeping together? At first, I thought they were brother and sister.
Well, she said they were like, that was her boyfriend, and she said that's a boy, and that's my, the usual. So I don't fully understand what their relationship is.
I didn't know if they were brother and sister.
I didn't.
And then, like, because when he was like, well, sometimes he's a boy, sometimes when I was like, ew. I was like, are they brother and sister? Keeping the bloodline clean,
Oh, gross.
I don't know if that's the truth or not. Maybe we'll find out. I don't know. But, yeah, that was my initial thought when I first watched this. When she said that, I was like, ew.
I can't. I can't.
Yeah.
So Christina and Tick kind of have this moment where it's like they're bonding. It's not intentional. I don't even think it's wanted really, but they are bonding over their quote unquote daddy issues and their oppression that they're feeling.
Yeah.
And they get into a conversation. He was like, you saved us. Like, you basically saved us, and you're not doing anything for me right now.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to like find a way to bring some sanity back to their group. And he's like, just because I can't remember the exact words here, but basically he likened them to the KKK, and she was like, we don't associate with them. They're poor.
Too poor.
And it's just like, okay, so now on top of racist, now you're classist, but it just kind of goes to show you that way of thinking, it doesn't matter. It's going to come from all walks of life.
Yeah. I'm kind of interested, though, what Christina's ulterior motive, because I know she's got an ulterior motive.
Yeah, she definitely does.
Because there's a scene in episode 2 where a little kid comes and gets her, and it's basically to witness a birth of a calf. I thought it was a calf at first, but pops out one of the monsters from the woods.
Booty leech monster. That's what I wrote.
I guess you can call it. I think that was one of the monsters from the woods, though. But he asked her, "Oh, have you done this before?" And she's like, "No, this is my first time." And I was like, "Why? Wait a minute. Why is this your first time? Like, what are you changing, and why are you changing it?"
But then also the other thing that got me, it was like, again, I go back to that thought of the disdain of African Americans. You sitting here carrying and nudge it up on a monster, cooing over it like it's a baby, but African Americans bother you? Which I'm still on the fence before. I can't quite tell if they truly bother her or not. I shouldn't say bother, but you know what I'm trying to say. I can't quite see what side of the fence she's on. So.
We do also have scenes in this episode where when George, Leti, and Tick are sent back to the rooms, they have these hallucinations.
Because Christina removes the spell from them.
Yeah, well, she removes the smell about the monsters from them. But again, they're trying to keep them there, so they also have more hallucinations about, I guess, just basically, I see it as... maybe secrets that they have, maybe that they're hiding in their past.
So it reminded me of Demon Knight to start off, because I'm like, okay, this is the seduction phase. They're seducing them into something. However, so we'll go into the scenes and what they were, and then I'll finish that thought where it switched. So Leti basically is talking to Tick.
Yeah, and she actually explains in this scene why she wasn't at her mother's funeral.
Right.
She basically says that her mom left her by herself a lot, and one day she left and just never came back, and Leti would pray and pray and pray that she would come back, and she never did. So we kind of get a little bit understanding as to why in the last episode, everybody's yelling at Leti, saying, why weren't you at Mom's funeral?
Right.
Well, now we know why.
Right, definitely. Then you pop over to Tick,
Mm-hmm.
who's actually...
she's explaining this to Tick, but Tick's actually in
That's
another
not
room.
Tick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually was like, when that hallucination started, I was like, wait a minute, how did he get in there? I was like, why would they put the two of them together? And halfway through, I was like, that's not Tick.
Right.
I was like, that is not Tick at all.
Then jumps over to him,
Yeah.
and he's fighting, what's her name, Gia?
Gia, yeah.
She's dressed like a Korean soldier, and they're going with
They're
Jamie
like,
Chung.
boom, 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 boom.
Jamie Chung, man, with the
Yeah.
action.
Yeah.
And they're like going at it like John Wick style.
Yeah.
That was a pretty impressive
Pretty
fight.
good. I enjoyed it. But right before they actually have that fight, Tick and Gia have that fight. He actually is doing Morse code to George in his room, and like you see George like writing down the Morse code, and it's like wizards. So I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, dude, they're so smart.
They're
Look
smart.
at them.
Yeah. But we're gonna hold on to that too, because I noticed something there as well. You probably picked up on it too. Going to Uncle George's hallucination.
Yeah.
So basically, he sees Tick's mama.
Yes.
And,
so this is Dora,
who
who in the last episode we saw George's
picture.
other daughter, drawing the comics based on her.
When I saw that, it all made sense to me now.
Yep.
It started
and there's
to
a
make
little
sense.
tidbit at the end too, but we'll get to that.
We're gonna hold on it, but it started to make sense. But the real interesting thing out of their conversation that
George's story.
George's story. So they were in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They were part of the Tulsa massacre. Did you pick up on that?
No, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, they were talking about. Remember, we used to be in Tulsa and we used to play "Never Have I Ever." And that was a reference going back to the Tulsa massacre, the Tulsa race massacre of 1921, or is it 1912? I always get that date flipped.
I don't know.
But anyway, that's what it is. So I was like, okay, that also. So then that made something else click. The Morse code to read, not to say that people don't read, but just like the difference in value of education, like during that time. The way they were raised, they were probably, that was really pushed upon. And it also comes back to something else in the episode. See, that's the thing about this. You notice all this stuff and it's connected, but you can't really get to it.
Yeah. But also, I noticed here that George, the story that George tells Dora, which is it basically, a man finds a home and he has to fight humanoid pig creatures before he can sleep and to find his long lost love.
Right.
That might not be the story word for word, but it was something like that. And then Dora was like, well, does he ever find her? And he says, no, the house collapses upon them, which is kind of a little tease for the end of this episode.
Yeah. I had to go back and look at my notes because that was going to bother me. Yeah, it's the massacre in 1921.
Okay. All right.
Tulsa. But to circle back to Leti. So again, this Adam and Eve thing, I noticed it in the stained glass windows. Then we see this this painting where Adam's wiener is a snake, which is not funny because Eve was not liking it. She was not liking the snake. And then that kind of got to thinking, all right, now if you think about the story of Adam and Eve and the snake, technically they always said that it represented the woman and whatever eating the apple, but what if the snake was the ding dong?
I had no comment about that. I saw that. It was like a window pane, and I was like, I'm not going to comment on that because.
But I was like, that's important because also.
I knew it was important, and I knew it would pop up somewhere, but I was just like, you know what?
But see,
I can't with this right
when
now.
I think about it, though, and I know I'm going to get this wrong because we grew up in Italy, and we saw a lot of paintings like this growing up, and it reminded me of Michelangelo. On the Sistine Chapel, I want to say that there's an Adam and Eve, or the expulsion of did I write it down? It's the expulsion of man something. I can't quite remember it right now. But it's a Michelangelo painting on the Sistine Chapel, which is not this straightforward, but there was always discussions in school talking about like where they were placed in I'm sorry you guys, Eve's head in relation to Adam's genitalia and stuff like.
You teaching me. I was too young. We lived in Italy as children. I was too young for this type of education, so I'm just like,
apparently this was what we learned in Italy on top of other stuff. But I remember that being a whole thing in the representation of Adam and Eve and some of the Renaissance paintings and all that stuff. So when I saw that painting, I know I'm getting on a tangent, it just kind of made my brain think and took me back to that. And I'm like, okay, I wonder how many different iterations of this story has been told through painting. Because there's another painting that I can't remember the name of, but basically it's Adam and his genitals are being consumed by a snake. So I don't know. If anybody knows what that painting's called, definitely drop down in the comments and let us know.
Yeah. But I did notice another thing. While they're all locked into these rooms, the doors are open. You can see through these rooms. They're just kind of trapped in them. And you see these people walking around. And I was like, this is kind of reminding me of like these white people just watching the black people, seeing what they're doing, watching what they're doing, seeing how they are for their, amusement. And I was just like, this is weird.
And that's what like caught my attention. So remember how I kept saying I thought they were being seduced? No, they were manipulating the environment for entertainment. Yes. They were looking to be entertained. Which, if you think about back in the day, that time and that mindset with blackface and all that stuff, there's always this idea that black people are here for your entertainment.
Right. Yeah.
So
I saw that.
that made me sad when it clicked in my head. I was like, oh gosh.
But eventually, though, George actually figures out that this is a hallucination. He knows Dora is not really there. But then I think there's another bell that they hear, and they're actually allowed to come out of their rooms at that point. William shows up again, creepy William, and is like saying, it's the dinner bell. It's a black tie. Unfortunately, Leti, you can't come because you're a woman.
I didn't want to go to your funky
anyway. Right. And George actually tells us that at the dinner because
so remember, Christina can't go either.
Yeah, Christina can't go either. But another thing that I liked, right before they went to the dinner, George and Tick went to the dinner, George pulled Tick and Leti together. And this is one of his other, paternal moments where he's like, don't you ever let them question yourself. And I was like, dang, I still have to say that to myself today. Like, I feel like nothing has changed.
Basically.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really good moment between the three of them before going to that dinner. So they go to this dinner.
I'm ready to get them.
They go to this dinner. Samuel's having this big old long speech about Adam gave Eve a rib. And so he wants to give them a piece of him like Titus did before him. And they set down a plate in front of George and Tick and everybody else in the room. And it's basically Samuel's liver. And George is looking at this and was like, what the heck is this? And Tick is like, don't eat that. I thought that was so funny.
Oh my gosh. Excuse me.
But this next part, I don't know if you want to talk about it more, but this next part, because Samuel's having this big old grand speech about
that's me, right?
Yeah, this is a speech. George is like, this is pretty fancy. Let me go ahead and say here. For one, I didn't want to be here. Yeah, I'll let you do that.
You got it. Look, go for it.
Yeah. Two, I was part of, what did he say? He was part of Freemasonry, Prince Hall. Which is a civil rights activist and abolitionist, fought for Massachusetts in the Civil War, I think it was. Yeah.
So he basically is the founding father of the African American Freemasons.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought this speech was really important, because then it kind of confirmed everything, like the lodge.
Yeah.
Okay, good. But it was also kind of like George's way of
be like, I know more than you do. You think I'm some dumb...
y'all think y'all the only ones that got lodges? Yeah. We got lodges too.
And I think it's so funny because he was like, you know what? I picked up the book earlier on today. The Order of the Dawn Phoenix. Or what is it? The Order of the Dawn.
The Order of the Dawn.
I don't know why I added Phoenix on there, like X-Men.
Dark Phoenix.
The Order of the Dawn. And I started reading myself. And you know what I found out? Basically, that a son among sons, which is a direct descendant of Titus, can give orders to just any old body in this club.
They're automatic
and
members.
you have to obey. And he's like, and since, my nephew over there looks like he is a son among sons, yeah, go ahead, take away Tick.
Basically, Tick say everybody get the fuck out.
Yeah, except for Samuel.
Right.
But, everybody pretty much is like, all right, let's get up.
They
get
were
on
hesitant.
Out of here.
They
were hesitant at first, but then he was like, I know y'all heard me.
Like, you have to listen.
Yeah.
He's like, I literally wrote down flex on them.
Yeah. So they get up and walk out, and Samuel's the only person left in there. And Tick is like, I want you to let my father go. And Samuel ain't going, though. Yeah. He's like, these other people in this room might, believe wholeheartedly in those, old traditions, but that ain't me. Right. So he's made it clear that, like, oh, you can do that to everybody else, but you ain't gonna flex on me.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's point out, too, Samuel is actually played by Tony Goldwyn.
Yeah. Ghost. I know everybody's going to be like, yeah, but I love him in Ghost. So,
gosh.
Anyways, but we learn that Samuel actually meets Tick for a ceremony that's taking place at dawn. But while they wait for this ceremony, George, Leti, and Tick are like, we got to get the F out of here. I think it's just George and Tick at this point, and they're like, we know where Montrose is. It's in that silo we saw before. Let's go get him. So they go down to the silo. They find a flask that is Montrose's, but they don't really find Montrose. Well, here comes the sheriff, thinking that she about to shoot them and feed them to her dogs. So I was like, girl. And here come Leti again, being my hero, is like, and hits her in the head with a shovel. So she's out. They eventually find out that Montrose has tunneled himself out of this prison. We see him pop up from the ground. And I thought this was so funny. When he popped up, he was like, I did this, and then all of a sudden we hear George like, "Hey, Montrose, how you been?" And he's like, Montrose is so angry at them though. Like, why y'all come here? I didn't need y'all to save me.
Right? Why can't you not recognize I wrote a letter under the
and again, here we go with the daddy issues.
Right? But let me say this: how
you mad that we came to save your butt?
Right? But let me say this: Courtney B. Vance and Michael K. Williams' brothers is hilarious. To me, dude.
Yes.
They could not have done better.
Like, I felt real, like that was real. That was a real relationship that they both had. So they actually end up stealing these silver Bentley out of the garage.
Because Leti knows how to steal cars.
Yeah. She's just so, like...
well-rounded.
Yeah.
I love it.
So they're on their way out of, this town, trying to get out of this town. They steal the silver Bentley. They're on the road, and they start having this conversation about... they're obsessed with the Book of Names, which is opposite from the Book of Necronomicon. Yeah. So basically, the Book of Names is basically they're obsessed with immortality. But before they can talk about too much other stuff, the car goes across the bridge and hits one of those barriers. Yeah.
Just like in the first episode where Christina was saving them from the truck. And it didn't hit nothing.
Yeah, the barrier. So crashes, and they're all trying to get out this car. But, behind them, Samuel and Christina has already caught up with them. Shoots Leti in the gut, which I was like, no!
And she dies.
Yeah, she pretty much dies. Christina, at this point, you can tell that she wants to help Tick.
Yeah.
Because Tick...
Dick Tick.
Let me say that. I'm going to do that one more time. Oh,
Lord.
Tick is like, man, maybe I should just call him Atticus. That's a real bad slip up. Anyways.
You ready to go home, ain't you?
I'm not. I mean, I'm good. It's just I need not to slip up like that again. Y'all think I'm a nympho or something. Anyways, Tick is like pleading with Christina, like, please help me. And she's acting like she wants to help. You can tell that she's like, I don't care. Like, my dad doesn't care about me. Samuel doesn't care about me. like, I want to help you guys, but I can't really do it in front of, I can't really do it in front of Samuel. So, basically Samuel's like, at this point you need to choose who's gonna come along on this ride with you. And I think at this point, I'm not really sure what happened here, but I think Tick accidentally looks at Montrose or George, I don't know, but George ends up getting shot by Samuel. And Samuel's like, at this point, in order for me to heal, well,
you do what I need you to do, and I will
save your friends, basically. We go back to the scene where they're washing Tick.
Now, hold off here, because I thought this was really cool as well. Something that this show has done, and it hasn't felt out of place, is incorporate kind of like newer age music. So in this scene was playing Marilyn Manson, Killing Strangers, and I was like, yeah, and it fit. It fit perfectly.
But this scene with washing Tick, I'm sorry, Jonathan Majors, that's his name, right? Jonathan Majors. We're not even gonna comment on he's a nice looking guy, but anyways, I thought it was like, when I first saw it though, I was like he's a slave. Like, just washing him up to put him up on the auction block. It kind of felt, I know that many people wouldn't be there watching them, probably would have just been like a whoosh kind of thing, but it kind of felt like he's a thing, you know? He's not a person.
Not only that, he's the magical Negro.
Yeah, pretty much.
They need him because he's a descendant in order to perform this ritual. And
they think they'll have actually the better chance of opening this door with Tick's blood.
Yeah. Which kind of goes into, again, it ties back to some earlier conversations. You start to realize the reason this place burnt down in the first place was because of this ritual they were trying to do. So it's like all the pieces come together.
Yeah.
Again, they bond over like oppression. And
Christina and Tick.
Christina and Tick, they bond like over oppression, and she gives him a way out. She gives him a sly way out.
Yeah, you have to pay attention to her wording there, because she's like, she basically is like, remember, you're the one with the blood, so you have the power. But she also says that the, what do they call it? The language, the Adam. It's a type of language, Adamite or something like that. But basically, the language of Adam is tricky. Yeah. She basically is like, language of Adam is tricky, so kind of.
You have to see your way out. Basically.
Yeah, you have to they have to do everything perfectly, and basically, I think it's because like not everybody speaks that language perfectly, so she's just like they might mess it up anyway. So you got the power to end this. You have more power over them.
Yeah. And I definitely want to go back to that, but again, it kind of goes into this theme of what we're seeing: daddies and distractions. Leti gets brought back to life, which we knew.
But she, which it is understandable. She is messed up. Understandable, because she's died. She's trying to find the wound that was there, and she's like washing up. But I felt for her in that scene, because it was rough.
Yeah, but when they brought up the Necronomicon in the car, I knew. Once we saw her get shot and they're like, she's dead, I'm like, she'll be back. She's coming back.
Yeah.
So from there, Montrose and George have a heart-to-heart. And just basically
sort of, kind of.
I know. It was like, how some people have that sibling that they don't necessarily like, but they love them, and when they communicate, it's not in the most loving way, but we're here. We understand each other. I feel like that's the conversation that they were having. Because it started off with him talking about, how come you don't color anymore? And at first I was just kind of, is he like, I don't know, hallucinating or something because he's been shot or whatever?
Yeah, because Montrose was like, I don't know what you're talking about, fool. But you've been senile in your old age.
Yeah, but turns out he used to color, and he used to welcome, was it the Negro boss players and stuff? And he was like, why'd you stop? He was like, I stopped because of daddy's right hook or something like that. So it kind of touched on the abuse that he faced as a kid. And again, remember when George is with his wife, Dora. It clicked in my head. I'm like, Tick ain't Montrose's son.
And he actually is basically telling Montrose at this point, like, if I die, you're the only parental figure he's going to have left. And like Montrose is still like mad because he's like, George, don't tell me what to do with my son. And George is like, well, he might not be yours. And Montrose gets angry because, you know, it seems like they've talked about this before, but they just made an agreement not to bring it back up again.
Yeah. And he knows about it. And I feel like that's why he used to whoop Tick's ass on top of what's been passed down. I feel like subconsciously that's probably why he was beating Tick's ass when he was a kid, because he knew that he wasn't his.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I didn't say that with very much sensitivity.
It's okay, I didn't mind.
I'm sorry.
But we go back to now at this point, Tick's, you know, they're in the middle of the ceremony, and what starts reciting, like what happens, I guess it's like a spoken word song that we hear at the moment is the title of this episode, Whitey on the Moon by Gil Scott Heron. Had this song in 1970. Basically, the song's about, you know, medical debt and poverty and stuff at the time where
you're trying to get on the moon,
Apollo,
but the people here still don't have what they need to live.
You trying to do something great and significant, you know, just to get ahead in the world, but you ain't helping the people out, you know, here that need help.
Which speaks to, again, this stupid lodge. This stupid lodge. It just kind of, or supremacy in general. At the end of the day, it's all about, I feel like it's all about power. And when you don't have that power 100%, you feel, how do I want to say it? You don't want anybody else to have your power. That's just the easiest way to say it.
Right. So in this moment, though, they're having this ceremony, you know, there's, you know, the people, the members of the lodge or the Order of the Dawn is speaking this language about him, going through this ceremony, and you start seeing things happening. You see actually the doors start to open, vines come out the door. But I think in this moment, Tick realizes, like, I've got to go back to those words that Christina said, like, I have the power, all I have to do is seize it. And, you know, at a certain point, you start see this out of this ring that Christina gave Tick prior to the ceremony, kind of like this black kind of aura come out of it. And I think at this point, Tix is like, this is what I need. He puts his arm up to the gate that's kind of opening, and he actually sees his ancestor through that gate.
Hannah.
Yeah, Hannah. And
she's pregnant.
Yeah. So something happens, and again, Tick has got this power where all of a sudden an explosion happens and all the members of the lodge who are in the room turns to dust, basically. There goes Samuel, everybody pretty much dead.
Yeah, he basically he just redirected the energy, you know, so took out the whole room.
Yeah. So at this time, though, not only does he take everybody out in the room, though, the mansion, the lodge starts to come down. So he's actually still seeing the vision of his ancestor Hannah, and she's running him, guiding him through the lodge to get out, which kind of made me think a little bit, did she set their fire? Like I felt like she was like retracing his steps of his ancestor, and like, because when she was running it was a fire, but when he was running you can see also just the lodge come down. So I was like, did she set that fire and she ran out, and maybe that's why she's the only person that survived?
Who knows, man? That's a good thing. I'm gonna have to go again. This will probably be my 4th time watching that episode, so I'm gonna have to go back to it.
Yeah, but anyways, I'm sorry.
I mean, it would make sense.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, when I saw her running out, because she was like smiling, and I was like, wait a minute.
It's like, nobody
it would be the smart thing to do.
Right.
Did she set the fire that killed Titus?
Oh, gosh.
But anyways, Tick actually makes it out the mansion. The mansion collapses. And we actually do see Leti, Montrose, and Woody, you know, sitting outside. They made it outside.
Oh, my gosh.
And this scene, I'll be honest with you guys, this scene tore me up. I feel like it was like, what is it, higher learning, Because I felt like I felt like I did that when Letty starts to give Tick that look like Deja, and I was like, no.
It did. So I'll give you a secret here. The first time I watched that episode, I cut it off right there because I felt the tears coming. Like I'm like, I don't want to cry. No. Yeah. So I cut it off, and then I came back to it this morning.
It was like Cleo and Set It Off moments. Yeah.
There's always
help
that.
But just like.
That Ricky.
Ricky! He had to run some zigzags though. He didn't need to run a straight line. But anyways, basically, and we find out at this point that George did not make it. He died.
Yeah.
You know, in the midst of this. And he can't, Samuel's gone, so he's not able to bring him back. And basically, this is how we end the episode on. I think what the song that plays over here is by Leon Bridges, River. That made it worse, too. That
really did.
I was like... Oh.
But they're good with their music and what they've chosen to use throughout the episode. Some of it being spoken word, some of it actually being like music, and it's not just like one genre either. It's really mixed out, and it doesn't interrupt the mood of what's happening in the show. So it enhances it.
Yeah, most definitely. But basically, this is where the episode ends on. But after the episode, I start thinking about some things. Do you think that William made it out of that?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Where's Christina?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Christina made it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just not sure about William and how he fits into everything, though. Because
he's got to be pretty significant, though.
Yeah.
He's got to be pretty significant.
They didn't show him, in the room. Well, I didn't see. Maybe if you guys saw him in the room with the rest of the people who were doing the ceremony, let me know. But I didn't see him in the room with the, ceremony people. So, and you know how he just pops up places? Yeah. He probably, popped himself out of that lodge. So I think he might still be alive. And I don't know... it seems like from the previews from the next episodes that George is pretty much, not coming back. But I kind of thought, if William and Christina made it out, is it possible that George can come back?
I hope so. And this is where it's really hard for me not to go read the book because I want to know.
I'm going to read it. I'm sorry. As soon as I get it, I'm going to read it because I just want to know what's going to happen. It's so good.
But again, it's like you said, though. With these 2 episodes, it's almost like it's if you, let's say you just push them together, it's like its own movie. Yeah. Like it's its own movie, and we're only 2 episodes in, so that means the way they're doing these episodes probably in chapters, basically, because I think the next story maybe doesn't have so much to do. It's related, but it seems like a whole different set of challenges that they're going to be dealing with.
Yeah. And I like it. I like the way, if they are going to roll it out like that, I love that style because every episode to me is not going to be I feel like we're not going to get an episode where it's just going to be dragging a little bit. And,
there's no filler here.
A filler, yeah. I feel like every episode is going to be pretty much as action-packed as the first 2 episodes. Second episode wasn't as action-packed as the first episode, but it was still interesting to me. It still kept my attention. I still wanted more at the end of the episode. So if they're going to roll out the rest of the episodes like that, I cannot wait to see what else they have in store for us.
I agree, but I think you really summed this one up. Daddy issues, distractions,
and deception.
The way people use words to paint a pretty picture or put pretty things in front of you to make you forget what the problem is. And we had mentioned this at the beginning of this particular breakdown. Very relevant to what's happening now in the election. So if you take anything from this show, if you take anything from this after talk, remember, call people out on the words they use to describe something that doesn't make you feel good. Pay attention to the images people try to portray to influence you to feel one way when you know that's not how you feel inside. I think on top of this being entertaining, it's also it's educational, definitely, but it's thought-provoking. It allows you to kind of go back into your head and have some conversations that might help you as an individual, or even as a community.
I agree.
I can honestly say the conversations that I've heard about this show and how it's influenced some of those conversations, it's a win. It's a total win. People you would not think, or people who just didn't understand or necessarily believe what kind of stuff happened back then have now been introduced to it in a way, and it's caused them to kind of look at the way they act and maybe what type of information they try to take in.
Yeah. I think it also causes them to, before reacting to something, ask questions first. Make sure you understand the whole of what's going on in the conversation before you reply.
Yeah. And I've definitely seen some of those conversations take place, and it's good.
Yeah.
I like it.
I agree.
All right, that was our breakdown of Lovecraft Country, episode 2. Whitey's on the Moon.
I can't wait for episode 3, but it's like a whole week away.
I know. And this is what they do to us. Every now and then you get that show where it just becomes torture to wait for the next episode.
Just think when the season ends.
I know.
And especially with the pandemic going on right now. Don't tell me when we're going to get new episodes. Yo, I'm not even going to think about that right now. I'm going to concentrate on episode 3. From the looks of what the preview they gave us for episode 3, I'm pretty excited about it. It might deal with some ghosts, so I'm always in for a good ghost story. Yeah. So I'm ready.
I'm definitely ready.
Yeah.
But that's our review / after talk for Lovecraft Country season 2 episode 2. Whitey's on the Move. What did you guys think? What did you take from that episode? Because we took a lot, but we know there's probably so much more that we missed, and definitely we want to hear from you. So make sure if you're loving the show, if you're liking these breakdowns, drop down in the comments. Let us know what we picked, what we missed that you might have picked up on. Again, we love comments. We read them. We respond to them. We will probably be picking up the book to start reading it as well.
I definitely will. I'm sorry. The first 2 episodes have been so exciting to me. I have to know what happens next. So
yeah, but we'll keep this train rolling though. So again, thank you for all your likes, your subscribes. We appreciate it. It helps us grow. But till next time, again, we're your hosts. I'm Killer Cam.
And I'm Monique.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.